Hobby Quick Hits. Delivering that breaking hobby news directly to your earlobes. You want to know those hot drops from the card shop? We've got you covered. With your host, John Newman.
Welcome to another edition of Hobby Quick Hits. Let me apologize for how I might sound. I'm battling a very bad cold, but the show must go on, so here we are. Took 2 COVID tests, which thankfully were negative. But besides being scary to have it, I actually have a busy weekend at the time of this recording. Got my fantasy baseball draft tonight, which if had I tested positive, I probably would have had to do it via phone. But even more exciting for me is I have my fairground show here in Syracuse, the last one actually till October tomorrow. And had I tested positive this morning, I wouldn't be able to attend that, and that would have stunk. No way I could have called that in, and no one to cover for me there. So, but thankfully tested negative. So the show, this show, tomorrow's card show, and tonight's fantasy baseball draft I will get to enjoy it. I probably sound worse than I feel, just a little stuffed nose. Runny nose, but that's it, and so got to keep going. So today's show, I've talked about this before. Sometimes the topic comes from outside sources. In other words, sometimes I get messages, "Hey John, do a show pertaining to this or talk about that," and this is another one of those type shows. I have a friend of mine who's a show dealer. Sort of a new one. He started a couple years before the pandemic hit, so he's only been doing it 3-4 years. Nothing wrong with that. And he listens to the show too, and he's like, "Can you do a show pertaining to shows, but from a perspective of," because he knows I did my first show at age 15 in 1987, kind of talking about how your approach has changed, John, or how you prepare differently or how you set up differently, just comparing eras. I kind of did a show sort of pertaining to that, but I'm going to do a little different one with talking about shows now and then and my approach. I did a now and then show, but this will be more of an internal look, kind of my approach, how I buy and sell, how I acquire inventory, that sort of thing. It's not going to be a long one, at least that's my plan as I record it. And but we're going to talk about how the hobby's changed, which is tremendous. I can make an argument the hobby's almost a completely different hobby, with the common denominator being the cards themselves. So that will be today's topic. We're going to hear from our great sponsor, Mojo Breaks, but right after that, we're going to get into the new releases for this week. I got a question and an answer for a listener, and then we'll get into the hobby news, some news this week, and then we'll get into the shows for me now versus then. Hope you enjoy the show, and let's hear from Mojo Breaks.
MojoBreakShop.com is the best place to get your sealed wax products and brakes. They not only have the best selection, but the best prices. Whether it's a box or a whole case, they are your guys. They ship worldwide to your doorstep. Their reputation as one of the most trusted in the hobby goes unmatched. They are the 2021 Topps Rip Party Champion Breakers. From sports card to Pokemon cards, their selection can't be beat. They offer daily deals and pre-orders.
Hey guys, John Newman here. Mojo's prices are already great, but to save an additional 10% off anything in their store, use the code Quickhits. That's Quickhits. Check out the full-service store that's open 7 days a week in Santa Clara, California, or the website at mojobreak.com. Time for this week's incoming product releases. All right, about 9 things out this week and a few days before, give and take. One of my favorite products, I believe, because I'm a sucker for acetate cards, the 2021 Clearly Donruss Football is out. I've been watching some breaks of that. Again, if you know me, you know I'm a sucker for acetate cards. Also out, 2021 Leaf Memories College Football. On the 5th, 2021-22 Score Serie A Soccer Cards. 2021-22 Panini Prism Draft Picks Basketball. Also on the 6th, 2022 Panini Prism WWE Wrestling. Also on the 6th, 2021 Panini Stars and Stripes USA Baseball. Also on the 6th, 2021 Upper Deck Goodwin Champions. Staying with the 6th, 2021-22 Futura Unique World Football Soccer. On the 8th, 2021 Top Star Wars Masterworks. And those are usually beautiful cards in a very popular set with the Star Wars collectors. So there you have this week's release schedule. Don't buy all the Donruss Clearly Up, not because it's not good. Just leave some for me. But all joking aside, there's your weekly releases. Choose your weapon. Happy ripping.
Answer my question! The question!
I'll answer the question. You want answers?
All right, got a great question. Actually got a great couple questions from Mr. Ed Johnson, who messaged me via Twitter. I'll probably use these every, I'm going to use one right now and maybe save the others for another episode. I spoke to him, obviously, in returning correspondence with him. But here's this week's question, again, from Ed Johnson. Thank you, Ed. Topps Game Within the Game issues one card every 3 or 4 weeks. And for 2 years, prices were base cards $7.99 each, wall art $24.99, and wall art 1-of-1s $2.49. But the new card issued is Wander Franco, and prices are $7.99 for the card, but now $49.99 instead of $24.99 for the wall art. And the 1-of-1, instead of being $2.49, was $4.99.99 respectively. Is Wanda Mania good or bad? And is it the dynamic pricing of Fanatics that is evil? All right, a couple layers here. First things first, the increase in pricing. Well, let's be honest. It's Wander Franco. We've seen what he's done. He's kind of the flavor of the hour, if you will, the flavor of current times. We had the Bowman Best, whether it was a rookie thing that had everybody and their mother chiming in, yours truly included. And then we had the Topps base with the flagship release, bringing, to me, an exorbitant amount of money for a base card for someone who hasn't done it on a consistent level. But that's nothing new in the hobby. We can't really be surprised by that. As far as the pricing for Game Within the Game, I guess I'm not answering the question. I'm almost asking one here. Is Fanatics, involved in that price increase, or is this Topps folks alone? I guess you got to say it's Fanatics since the acquisition has been made. Say, hey, we're gonna continue to cash in on the phenomenon that is Wander, and we're gonna double some of these. Now they kept the base card at $7.99. That would have bothered me a little bit more if all of a sudden the base card went to $9.99 or higher, and it would probably even bother me more if they did that And then the next player release went back down to $7.99, just kind of cashing in individually. Let's see what they do with the next player release with the wall art and the 1-of-1. Now, I don't buy wall art or the 1-of-1 wall art, so that price increase doesn't affect me. The 1-of-1 wall art is a 1-of-1, so that price increase is only going to cost one person more money. So, the fact that they kept the base card at $7.99, I'll stick up for them a little bit. They raised the wall art, not the 1-of-1, by $200. Probably because they can, right? The market sort of sets the price here. And Fanatics paid a lot of money for this licensing. They want to get a return on their investment, as anybody would. That's not necessarily picking on them, but we'll see. I think it would have bothered me more, Ed, had the regular card went from $7.99 to something else. Because that's going to affect more people across the board, right? They're selling a lot of those base cards, if you will, where that price hike would affect more people across the board. So I get it to a certain extent. I'm glad the base card, they didn't jump on that and gouge people on that one. As far as Wander Mania being good for baseball in the hobby, yeah, I think it is. I would just tell people, watch what you spend your money on. But, yeah, it creates attention for the hobby. It creates a buzz. And, baseball can use as much of that as they can get. To me, it's the least marketed sport, or at least marketed in a poor way. I think baseball leaves a lot on the table when it comes to marketing their brand and their superstar players, especially compared to other sports, basketball, even football. Hockey even, does a pretty good job with branding and marketing. But baseball, I don't know. I don't know if they're just, sitting on their hands and just said, hey, we've been around for, almost 100 years. 100 years, we're in the national pastime, which I will argue they aren't any longer. But maybe that's how they feel internally. And, there's people who don't even know who Mike Trout is, some people. So that's a problem. So is Wander Mania good for the game? Yeah, it's going to draw attention to the sport. It's going to draw attention to the hobby. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. So there you go. Thanks, Ed, for the questions. I'm sure I'll be talking about some of the other ones on future episodes. It's time for the Hobby What's Up, where we go around the hobby world and tell you all the latest news and breaking stories from the hobby we love.
What's up? What's up? What's up? What's up?
Fanatics proving they are not here to make any friends or add to their Facebook friend list, at least with other companies, if you will, have announced they have an agreement with the WWE for merchandise, the digital end of the spectrum, and NFTs. We'll start in a couple years. Here's the weird part. WWE and Panini just announced that agreement for that couple years, and now it's been announced that Fanatics will take over once the Panini contract has expired. Obviously, odd timing, but like I said, Fanatics doesn't care what other people think as they try to take over the hobby world. The timing of it, to me, leaves the door open for maybe Fanatics doing the same things with Panini that they did with Topps. A.K.a. maybe an acquisition in the works. Again, I'm just speculating. I don't have any kind of inside insight. Just thought the timing was weird. And why, you announced that, maybe they realize, like, hey, if we acquire Fanatics, we'll have it now and then. And we'll have to wait and see if anything additional comes to light. But the timing definitely seems different. PSA is getting into the vault business. They'll join PWCC, Golden, Beckett, Alt. I might have forgot somebody in having a fully fledged vault. It'll be 11,000 square feet. It'll be in Delaware, and they expect to house $4.3 billion in that vault within a few months. Right now, they actually have $1.6 billion in cards just in their backlog alone. Don't ask me how someone comes up with these figures, but they're probably fairly close to accurate. They are up to 100 graders as they try to unbury themselves, and they also got $100 million in an additional investment money. So PSA continues to expand what they do. Topps, how about some small news, right? Topps has renewed their Nippon League, Japanese Baseball League license. No announcement to how long or the length, but they will just continue that relationship. The first autograph guest of the approaching National Convention is Dan Marino. As you will know, there'll be many more announcements to come. And the Sports Card Expo of Canada has announced one of their headlining autograph guests in Jaromir Jagr. So there you go. As we approach the National, I'm sure there'll be many more announcements to come, and I'm very close to starting my National Countdown timer as I do every year. So there's this week's hobby news.
And now, our feature presentation.
All right, today's topic comes from someone else's recommendation or request, as I often do requests. You can call me DJ Easy Newman, but all joking aside, a lot of our topics come from people who want me to cover that or talk about that or talk about my experiences. When you've been doing this a long time, people will pick your brain. Doesn't mean I'm always right. They just want to sort of lean on that experience. So I have a dealer acquaintance of mine who's recent to doing shows within the last 3 or 4 years. Started just before the pandemic. Pandemic hit and kind of sidetracked him where he couldn't set up at shows, and as we all know, back on the show circuit again. And he wanted me to tackle like my approach to shows back in the 80s and 90s compared to my approach today. I still do shows. Got one at the time of me being on this mic. I got one tomorrow at the Syracuse State Fairgrounds. I've been doing really well with that, and wanted to talk about how my MO has changed over those years. Well, the first thing I want to start with is the hobby, frankly, has changed. Again, the cards are the common denominator, but everything else in the hobby, we've got, grading is a bigger deal now than it was back in the day. We got NFTs, although that's not necessarily a big show thing. But we've got more people. One thing I will say, we've got more people coming to tables with their cases, selling their wares to the dealers. Back in the day, I'm not saying that didn't happen, but not in the same vein. There were people, a lot of times they would, just have some cards in their hand and say, hey, you're interested in any of these. But cases-wise, we didn't have, number one, all the brands of cases that we do now. Matter of fact, I remember bringing my show inventory back then in monster boxes, shoe boxes. Now we have card cases, right? Whether it's the metal ones, the plastic ones, they're airtight, waterproof. Those things didn't exist at that time, at least for card transportation, So we would just bring our stuff. The other thing I noticed, back then, when we look at back then compared to now, is, I don't know if I mentioned, and one of the reasons besides eBay that I sort of got out of my storefront after 7 years and sold out to my partner and did shows was, setting up at shows, we were starting to notice a lot of our customers, and I'm not complaining about this or, being grumpy about it, but we started to notice a lot of people who were coming into the store were also now setting up, at the shows with us. And so people were turning into customers, into compadres as sellers. And again, nothing wrong with that. This is America. But I remember just saying, like, I wanted to travel more and do more out-of-state shows, out-of-town shows, kind of to see different faces. Not that I didn't get along with anyone or like anybody. I did. Matter of fact, I'll say this. Another difference for me with shows now versus then is I knew everybody at the shows then, literally. I mean, especially local ones. I knew them first name, mostly last name basis, what they collected, if they collected anything, what they liked, what they specialized in, where they were from, where they lived. There was more camaraderie than to now. Now, I stopped doing the shows for a number of years and then picked up on it again. So you sort of, a lot of new faces, and I don't want to say it's cutthroat, but, maybe, I don't know. I don't know everyone I'm in the room with like I used to. I know some of them. I get along with a good percentage. Others I just don't know. Either way, so there's no animosity. I just don't know them. So that's another big difference for me from now versus then. I knew everybody more back then. And now when I notice, I'm not trying to be bragging. Now I have a lot of people who approach the table who know the show or listen to the show or know it, and we talk, about the hobby or different events or topics of the hobby, and just catch up from the last time we talked at the last time the show was here in Syracuse. And so I have more of a banter with people attending the show. Matter of fact, when I first started doing shows back in the late 80s and early 90s, I was a shy guy. And so I've talked about that before on the programs. I didn't do a lot of small talk. I wasn't trying to be rude. I don't want to say it wasn't, an intent, but I was so shy I didn't engage a customer all the time like I do now. Now it's just night and day. Now I'm hey, how are you doing? Is there anything in particular you're looking for? I don't have everything out, so if there's something in particular, please let me know. I can see if I have it or not. I'm more of a customer service oriented. I think that's from being older. I like to think wiser. And, knowing some people won't ask. You're right. It's the reason I price cards versus not price cards. When I'm walking around a show as a consumer, if a dealer doesn't price his cards, and I'm running a poll on all our social medias with this. Do you ask a dealer who doesn't price cards, or do you go to the next table? And I'll announce those results when that voting stops. But I can tell you, early votes in are saying I don't ask. I go to the next table, or I ask only when I really, really, really need a card. Other than that, I go to the next table. And I know that from personal feelings. And so that's why, as a dealer, I price all my cards. Now, I priced all my cards back then, too. So that's remained consistent. Now, here's the difference, I'll say, when it comes to pricing cards. And I'm going to be very honest and transparent with this. Do I price 100% of my cards today when I do shows? And the answer is no. I price probably 98% of them, so pretty close. But there are cards, and I think you'll understand when I say this, there's a few cards that are very volatile, right? They literally changing, going up and down, or up certain times. And so, if I have a showcase with 40 cards in it, there might be one or two cards that didn't get a price gun sticker put on it, right? Intentionally. I'm not going to lie and say it was an accident. Intentionally, because the price is fluctuating so much, I don't want to keep putting labels over labels over labels. And so I'll leave it sort of unpriced, and it's the kind of card someone will, ask for a price, like, hey, what are you looking to get on that? And then we can start those type of negotiations. So I'm not 100%, but I'm very close. Again, if my showcases have one or two cards unpriced, that's about it. But the rest they're all priced. Even my graded stuff and other stuff that does change and fluctuate in price. Does that lead to some good deals for people? Sure, that's what it's about, right? You want to make people happy with the transaction. You want them to be satisfied, so they come back and see you again. And so that's one difference from now to then. Another difference with me and my shows now to then, well, a couple, right? Back then we had something, and if you've been around in hobby a while, you're going to nod your head to this. We had something called Broder cards. An illegal knockoff card made in the basement. I'm assuming the guy's name was Broder. We've always called them Broder cards. And they just made the rounds. They were just knockoff. They usually did star players. Here in New York, I must have sold a million Don Manleys of those and other players. Everybody was selling them. People knew what they were. They knew, no one was fooled. They're not one of those, fake cards on eBay that tries to pass itself off as an original, or a reprint trying to pass itself off as the original. These were, just fake cards, and, player collectors had to get every Broder card of the player they collected, and all the dealers had them. They were a staple, and in at least in New York area back at that time, and we sold a lot of those things. You don't see them anymore for obvious reasons, but back then they were hugely popular, a big huge hit, especially on the show circuit. So that was one difference. The other difference was I sell, at my setup now, I have a lot more sealed wax than I did back then. Matter of fact, I'm trying to think. Before I opened my store, I sold some packs on a few boxes, but I didn't have any sealed wax. Then when we opened our store and we still did shows, I'm going to be honest with you, we really didn't bring a lot of wax. We kind of kept it in the store and left it for our store customers, and we brought our singles. And we sort of had like a show inventory versus a store inventory. At least I did. I had like my show boxes, and then I had the cards that were for sale in the store, because I didn't really want to like take things out all the time, put them back, and so I had sort of two sort of inventories. Now, obviously, some bigger cards, I remember back in the day, Shaq Beam Team was huge. It still is a pretty huge card, but I remember having one of those in the store. But when we were going to do a show, I'd pull it out of the case, put it with my show inventory, and put it out in the case, and either sell it or bring it back to the store, right? And things like that. So that's, I have a lot more sealed wax now. Obviously, the wax has even changed, right? A lot of my sealed wax is some of that Montgomery Club exclusives, right, that you get offered to you as a Montgomery Club member. Montgomery Club didn't exist in the late 80s and 90s. So, any wax I had back then was your standard issue, Topps Fleer and Donruss. And then in 88, Scork hit the scene. 89, Upper Deck hit the scene. And we know, right, the rest as new companies came along. So that was a big difference. I think, back then I got a lot of my inventory by opening wax, by opening boxes, by opening an occasional case. I don't do that anymore. I'll open an occasional box, full disclosure, but I opened probably 1/20th, 1/30th, maybe even more than that than I used to. I just learned that it's fun. It's fun. No one will argue. It's probably the funnest thing you can do. Most exciting, exhilarating thing you can do in the hobby is open a box, open packs, open a case, whatever the case may be. But I've learned by trial and error, and mostly by error, that, while it's fun, when the smoke clears and the dust settles, and you look at what you spent versus what you have, I learned it's better to buy the singles and things I want. So I tend to buy more my show inventory than open stuff to get it. In other words, I'll buy a collection. I'll buy from someone coming up to my table. I'll buy a lot on an auction site or eBay, which is also an auction site. I'll buy, things like that. I'll go to sport lots and maybe buy some star cards occasionally of a prospect that hasn't hit yet that I believe will. And, one thing that hasn't changed from then till now is I follow the minor leagues. I try to know who might be the next guy before the next guy knows. Now, it's hard. I think I had more of an advantage back then because we didn't have 4 to 6 minor league podcasts like we do now that literally tell you everything or almost everything you need to know. There were no podcasts back then, period. Podcasting didn't exist. So I used to have to do my own, looking at box scores, trying to do my own research to find out how these young baseball players were doing. So for me, back then, there was more legwork, and there was probably less people following baseball on those lower levels to kind of get those up-and-coming players before everyone else. The other thing is, I was doing it back then for minor league sets, right? I was carrying minor league sets of young players. I was, he didn't sneak up on anyone, but I had, 10 87 Bellingham Mariner sets in my inventory. Some I was keeping, some were for sale. That's not a great example because he was a number 1 pick and sort of a can't-miss guy. But I was looking for not the can't-miss guys, but the other guys that were going to be major league caliber, all-star level players that people weren't talking about yet to get their minor league sets. Remember, Bowman wasn't around yet. And even when Bowman came back in 1989, it wasn't the Bowman we know today with prospects that were 4 or 5 years away. So, I wasn't doing it for that reason then. Now, that's the difference, right? You're trying to get, I'm trying to get lots of these Bowman first cards of guys that may have those great careers that don't have a lot of buzz attached to them. But I think while it's easier today because there's those 4 or 6 minor league podcasts, Baseball America does a great one, and I'm a fan of, and there's others. There's now more people that competition pool. There's more people in it splashing around, and so that work I did back then was probably more rewarded then because there was a lot less people doing the legwork in comparison to today's hobby game, if you will. And so I probably don't put as much time into it. I'm also doing other things. Obviously, this show, as well as taking up some time that I don't have to do that. But I still partake in it, and I still do it. So that is some of the differences of my show sort of prep now and then. Obviously, I'll say it even though it probably goes without saying, right? Again, some of the technology we have now, some of the, we have cases now to lug our gear to the show that we didn't have then. So it really is some time savers, right? Like I said, I'd have, 5 Monster boxes. Now I can put, the stuff that's in 5 Monster boxes, I can put into 2 Pastime Marketplace cases. So it saves sort of some, unpacking time, if you will. One thing I didn't do then that I do now, if you've listened to the show, you probably heard me talk about this. All my stuff today is in alphabetical order by player. So my show inventory is in those Pastime Marketplace cases in alphabetical order, from base cards, inserts, to graded cards. If you say Bryce Harper, I can pull out every Bryce Harper in the inventory in under 2 minutes, most likely, and anyone else for that matter. So back then, that wasn't the case. I was just putting stuff out. A Y player would be with a B player as far as last name goes. I don't want to say it wasn't organized, but I wasn't organized to the level that I am today. Today, like I said, all my stuff's in alphabetical order. What does it cost me to do that? Some time, because when I pack up, I have to pack all my stuff back up in alphabetical order. My son hates it when he's there helping me because it's more time consuming. I'm saying, hey, give me every player that, in the cases with a B, a C, and that sort of thing. It's not super long time, but it's more time consuming than the guy next to me who's just scooping his stuff up like a 52 card deck and just putting it in his case and getting out of Dodge, right? I'm usually one of the last guys in the room just because I'm so methodical about, having my stuff in alphabetical order. But it also aids me during the week, right? I make sales on selling platforms during the week, and when those orders come in, being that my stuff's in alphabetical order, it's a lot easier for me to find that card, package it up, got a Rolo thermal printer, print that label real quick. So I've economized my time in other areas, kind of to maybe offset for the alphabetical order, inventory. And so it's just made life a lot easier, I think, or card life a lot easier. And so that, we'll probably wrap it up with that. And that's, hopefully that's kind of, what my friend was looking for. I've kind of my approach now versus then as a show dealer. I like to also think, doing it 30 years of card shows as not only a dealer. I mean, I go to shows where I'm not set up to buy cards. I like to think that experience translates. I like to think I'm wiser than the 15-year-old me, and the 20-year-old me, and the 25-year-old me now as I approach the 50s. And, I think I am, but, I think experience, you can't put a price on that. I think experience goes a long way. So like anything else, whatever you do, the more you do it, you should get better at it. All right, folks, we're going to call it an episode. I'll come back with some closing thoughts. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of Hobby Quick Hits. Thank you out there who download and listen to this show. I always say it because I always mean it. Thank you for this episode, for hanging in there with me as I battle through this cold and get the show done regardless. And, hope everyone is safe and well. As always, if you have any questions, you can reach out to me at all the show social medias, our website, which is at www.sportscardnationpodcast.com. sportscardnationpodcast.com. You can reach out, ask us any questions. I may use that question on the show, as I try to do at least with one question each week. And in general, I'm always available to try to help my fellow hobbyists out. So with that being said, that's a good high note to end on. We'll see you Friday on Sports Card Nation. We'll see you again on this show on next Monday. Thanks, everybody. Take care.